The Invisible Son-in-Law by Zhou Dedong. My hometown was LILI-D town, in the far north of China, a place of ice and snow, blue sky and white earth. When I was 26, my great-aunt died. In my memory, she wore black clothes and black trousers, with a face as white as paper. Her tiny feet looked like two zongzi, and she spent her days sitting cross-legged on the heated kang, smoking a long pipe. The kang was spread with a reed mat already worn red by use, and the gaps in it were black with grime. Her eyes were formidable, even a little vicious. She spent her whole life obeying the elaborate rites of the old days, and in her later years, she set down all kinds of rules. Her children, grandchildren, and daughters-in-law were all afraid of her. Great-aunt lived in a village called Julong, 30 li from LILI-D town. I hurried there. I have never liked Chinese funerals. They drain away all the grief and leave only the grotesque and the terrifying. I had long ago told my relatives and friends, when I die, do not send wreaths for me, and do not hold any traditional funeral rites. Just place flowers beside me. A solemn expression will do. At the very least, do not smile. Great-aunt's house was at the eastern edge of the village. A long bamboo pole already jutted out from the high courtyard wall, hung with sheets of white paper. There should have been 74 of them, marking the age of the deceased. The papers flapped and rattled in the wind, as if telling outsiders that someone in this household had died. I went into the main courtyard and saw that a mourning tent had already been set up. People were coming and going. They were all relatives and neighbors. In the middle of the empty courtyard stood a grand coffin painted with bright floral designs, showing scenes from the 24 filial exemplars. Throwing himself into the river to search for his father, lying on ice to beg for carp, Zilu carrying rice, Huang Xiang fanning the pillow, Lu Ji hiding oranges in his sleeves, Lao Lai amusing his parents, crying to make bamboo shoots grow, Guo Ju burying his son, cousins and aunts, and the rest were all in coarse mourning hemp, dressed in white, from head to toe, every face dark and drawn. They led me into the main room. The main room was deep and a little dark. I saw Great-aunt lying on the floor. She was dressed in a coffee-colored silk burial suit. A sheet of yellow spirit paper covered her face. A rope was tied around her ankles, and in her pale hands, she held the dog-driving stick and the dog-driving dry rations. By custom, there should also have been a copper coin in her mouth, the mouth-sealing coin. As soon as I stepped into that courtyard, I felt oppressed. I knew nothing about funerals and could not help with anything, so I stood alone outside the gate trying to clear my mind. Looking down the dirt road toward the village, I thought of Tian Gai Gai. Her house was at the western edge of the village. She always spoke softly and timidly, as though she were made of fright, since I often came to Great-aunt's house. Her mother liked me very much, and once right in front of Tian Gai Gai, she had even said, "If our Gai Gai can find a young man like you when she grows up, that will be a blessing." Later, I dreamed about her often. I had not seen her for years, and I did not know what she had become. After dawn, it was time to place Great-aunt in the coffin. She was carried out of the main room. A black cloth covered her face, meaning she was not to see daylight. My cousin-aunt knelt at the head of the coffin and let out a shrill cry, "Mother." Then the children and grandchildren burst into tears all at once. A few sturdy men were about to nail the coffin shut. Long iron coffin nails. When they nailed the south end of the coffin, the funeral master shouted, "Move north." When they nailed the north end, he shouted, "Move south." At funerals, people are always in a commotion. Toward evening, a tall man arrived. He seemed to be there to pay his respects, but he kept standing in one corner of the courtyard. I never saw him bow or kowtow. He just kept staring at that grand painted coffin. I watched him closely. It seemed that no one knew him. My cousin-aunt was bold after dark. She kept vigil over the dead. I wanted to experience it too, so I went out into the courtyard and sat with her. I knew keeping vigil was only a formality. The only real thing to do was keep little cats, dogs, and chicks from wandering near the coffin, for fear the dead might borrow a breath and rise again. Everyone had been tired all day and had gone to sleep. Somebody's dog barked dully in the distance. There was wind. The white paper outside the courtyard wall trembled even harder in the black air. Flap, flap, flap. Offerings were laid at the head of the coffin, and the long burning lamp was lit. It was a tiny dish full of oil with a cotton wick sticking out. The flame was as small as a bean, flickering in the wind, bright and dim by turns. My cousin-aunt burned paper one sheet at a time in the basin before the coffin. The coffin had already been nailed shut, and now I no longer knew what expression Great-aunt wore. Only the two of us were left. I was a little afraid, so I chatted with my cousin-aunt. "Is Tian Gai Gai still in this village?" My cousin-aunt froze for a moment and said, "She died 6 months ago." I was shocked. "How did she die?" My cousin-aunt sighed and told me. After graduating from high school, Tian Gai Gai became a privately hired teacher at a school with earthen houses, earthen courtyards, earthen tables, and earthen chairs. Once she was sent to the county seat for a training session and met a male teacher from another place, surnamed Zhang. In just 2 months, she fell deeply in love with him. After the training ended, each went back to his own county, and word from him grew faint and distant. Back then, only the village office had a hand-cranked telephone. If Tian Gaigai wanted to call that male teacher long distance, she first had to get through to the central switchboard in Zhulendi town, then be transferred to the county switchboard. From the county switchboard, she had to be connected to the switchboard of that town, then to the telephone in that village, and ask some idle person standing by the phone to go to the school and find him. All that trouble was barely worth more than walking there to meet face to face. In truth, she and he were only in a hazy sort of relationship. They had never openly confessed their feelings. Tian Gaigai could never have gone looking for him. These days, condoms have become the last defense of chastity, but back then men and women stood apart like mountains. They were subtle as the moon, and men and women still blushed. Tian Gaigai was a gentle, sensitive, taciturn girl. Once she finally gathered the courage to reveal a small piece of her deepest secret to her parents. When her parents heard that the male teacher surnamed Jiang came from a poor family, they immediately pulled a face and sternly warned her. This kind of relationship was unrealistic, and from now on she must never see him again. Tian Gaigai did not dare resist. From then on she fell into one-sided love. Her family had 3 rooms. The east and west rooms each had a king bed. Her parents and her younger brother Tian Quan slept in the east room. She slept alone in the west room. One night the power went out, and Tian Quan was still not home from helping their father cut wheat. Tian Gaigai's mother sat by an oil lamp and mended shoes. Tian Gaigai was in the west room, probably reading. School was on winter break, and she had stayed at home all along. But her mother suddenly thought she could hear someone talking in the west room. She put down what she was doing, got up from the floor, and walked over softly. Sure enough, she heard Tian Gaigai muttering in the west room, talking to someone. The mother went over and saw Tian Gaigai sitting alone on the kang, chatting with the person opposite her. But there was no one opposite her at all. The oil lamp flickered. On the old New Year print on the wall, a fat baby grinned stupidly. The dragon and phoenix designs on the cabinet looked strangely deep and remote. The curtain was drawn tight. Gaigai, the mother shouted. Tian Gaigai whispered to the invisible person, "My mom's here." Then she swung one leg down from the kang, as though she had done something wrong, and asked her mother in a low voice, "Mom, do you need something? Who are you talking to?" Her mother asked sternly. "Da Zhou." Where had this Da Zhou come from? Her mother had never even heard the name. "Who is Da Zhou?" her mother asked in alarm. "My husband. You're married? You didn't know? Wasn't he the one you arranged for me?" She frowned, looking at her mother in puzzlement. Her mother hurriedly pulled her into the east room and asked in a low voice, "What does he look like?" She suspected that some dead man from the village had possessed her daughter's body. Tian Gaigai turned back to glance at the west room and said, "Tall, big eyes." Then she sighed deeply and said, "Mom, actually." She seemed afraid her mother would get angry and did not dare go on. "Actually what? I'm not very satisfied with his looks, too thin, and his skin is a little dark. His voice is a bit hoarse too. He doesn't compare with that man at all." That man she meant was the male teacher surnamed Zhang. Then she said, "Mom, I'm not blaming you. He's very good to me too. When you're married to a chicken, follow the chicken. When you're married to a dog, follow the dog. Marry a piece of wood and carry it home." Her mother stood there, dumbfounded. The man her daughter described was someone she'd never seen. And yet, from her daughter's manner, this person really did exist, sitting on the kang in the west room. He was her daughter's husband. "Mom, if there's nothing else, can I go back to my room now?" Tian Gaigai asked tentatively. "You go ahead." Tian Gaigai turned around and drifted back to her west room. Her mother looked toward the west room. The oil lamp was still flickering. The father and son finally came back from the wheat field. Her mother did not mention this matter. Tian Quan was only 15. She was afraid it would frighten him. After Tian Quan finished supper and crawled into bed to sleep, his mother shut the door, blew out the oil lamp, and told Tian Gaigai's father about it in a low voice. The husband lay on the kang, taking puff after puff from his pipe, saying nothing. Listening to my cousin aunt tell the story, I felt gooseflesh rise all over my body. That story alone could not scare me. My fear had another meaning. My cousin aunt, fully absorbed in telling me about Tian Gaigai, had stopped burning paper. The wind grew stronger and stronger. With a whoosh, the long burning lamp went out. At that moment, I felt a small living thing suddenly burst out beside me, leap up onto the coffin, and dash toward the dark pigsty. I was stunned. I did not know whether it was a cat or a mouse. Whatever it was, it had jumped onto great aunt's coffin. According to superstition, if great aunt borrowed a breath, she might sit up. My cousin aunt hurriedly lit the long burning lamp again. She and I exchanged a look and stared at that grand painted coffin. After a long time, we still heard no sound from inside. My cousin aunt went on. The next day, Tian Gai did not come to the east room for breakfast. Her mother went into the west room and found her dressed up beautifully, sitting on the kang and looking into a mirror. Gai, why aren't you eating? She said shyly. Mom, I'm already a married woman. How can I still eat at my mother's house? Zhou will be back tonight. He'll bring me food. At noon, Tian Gai still did not eat. By evening, she still did not eat. Her father got anxious. He went into the west room and barked at her. Do you want to live or not? Go eat right now, Tian Gai said timidly. He'll be angry when he comes back. Her father stopped reasoning with her, grabbed her wrist, and dragged her outward. Tian Gai looked at her father in fear, but she clutched the doorframe so tightly that she would not let go. Dad, please, you can't force me. I don't dare eat. She struggled and cried at the same time. At dinner that night, Tian Gai's parents and Tian Quan did not eat well. Night fell, and every house had gone to sleep. Tian Gai's parents listened closely to the sounds from the west room. Tian Gai was not speaking. She seemed to be mending shoes. Shh, 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 shh. No one knew how long had passed when it suddenly seemed as if someone had come back. She started talking again, in exactly the tone a husband and wife might use. The three people in the east room did not dare breathe. They listened all the way through. The voice grew softer and softer until at last it could no longer be heard. Then they heard Tian Gai making munching sounds under the quilt. Crunch, crunch, as though she were eating carrots. 2 more days passed, and Tian Gai still would not take a single bite of food. It was as if she meant to cut herself off from all earthly smoke and fire. She brought out all the clothes she normally could not bear to wear and changed several times a day. After dressing herself up bright and neat, she sat on the kang in a daze. As soon as night fell, she would mutter with that person. No one could make out what she was saying. That night, her parents dragged her into the east room and made her sleep beside them. Terrified, she said, "He'll get angry." Her father said, "If anything happens, I'll bear it." At night, her father and mother lay on either side of Gai, pressing her tightly in the middle, leaving no gap at all. They wanted to see exactly what would happen. The next morning, before the damp red sun of the northeast had fully risen, Tian Gai's father woke up. He turned his head and was startled to see that there was a person's space between him and Gai. Had Gai pushed him away? Had he rolled away in his sleep? Had someone come in at night, moved him aside, and slept beside Gai? After several days without eating or drinking a thing, Tian Gai had become thin as a paper figure. Yet the powder on her face grew thicker and thicker. The brows and eyes were painted darker and darker, and the lips were painted brighter and brighter red, making her look utterly horrifying. Her parents hitched up a cart and took her to Zhou Town Hospital. A one-eye doctor examined her, could not diagnose any real illness, and gave her some glucose, telling them to take her home and nourish her properly. When they got home, Tian Gai's parents were nearly in despair. They felt that there really did seem to be a man in the west room, invisible. Someone they could never see, though Tian Gai could. They did not know where he came from, did not know his name, and did not know what he really was. They could almost feel the strange aura around him and his thin, tall shadow. It seemed he came out by day and returned at night. That day they brought in a spirit medium. The man had a goatee and darting restless eyes, but just as he had followed Tian Gai's father into the gate of the Tian courtyard, he suddenly turned around and headed back out. Tian Gai's father chased after him and asked in puzzlement, "Why aren't you coming in?" The man said in panic, "Don't come looking for me again." Tian Gai's father held on to him miserably and said, "Please, save my daughter. I'll even kowtow to you." The man rolled his eyes and said, "To tell you the truth, I can't handle this thing. Find someone else." "But who can handle it?" "There is a flower great master in Xiaoshe village. He can." Xiaoshe village was 30 li from Julong. Tian Gai's parents hitched up the cart and took her there. Tian Quan went too. He had already known about this, and he did not dare stay in the house with that thing. The flower great master was an old man. He listened to Tian Gai's parents describe everything from beginning to end, without saying a word. After a long while, he said, "I can't beat this thing either. It is too strong. But I have an idea. My house is deep. You can hide here for a few days. If it really can't find her, it will leave on its own." So the family of 4 stayed at the flower great master's house. Strange to say, in these 2 days, Tian Gai seemed much better. She no longer muttered to herself, and she had started eating again. On the evening of the third day, just after dark, Tian Geigai suddenly stared out the window in terror and said softly, "It's bad, he's here." Then she ran all over the floor in fright, looking for a place to hide. Everyone was stunned. She still could not find a hiding place. At that moment, it seemed the man had entered the room and was beating her viciously. While she shrank back in terror, she shouted, "I'll go back right now. Stop hitting me, I'll go back right now." Then she knelt before her parents and said, "Take me home quickly." Her parents had no choice but to hitch up the cart and take her home. When they left the flower great master's house, they found that the flower great master and his family had somehow vanished from sight. The whole house was empty. In the cart, Tian Geigai became much calmer. Her mother trembled and asked, "What did he say?" Tian Geigai sighed and said, "He asked why I didn't tell him before I left. He said I was hiding from him. He said I'd never be able to hide from him for my whole life." 2 months later, Tian Geigai died. This story is profoundly dark. The more I thought about it, the more confused I became, and the more confused I grew, the more terrified I felt. 3 days later, great aunt was carried out for burial. That day was overcast, and the funeral procession was long. That inexplicable tall man was among them too, still staring at that grand coffin. No one seemed to know where he had come from. I kept far away from him. Great aunt's sons, grandchildren, and daughters-in-law all wore mourning clothes that dragged on the ground, with hemp ropes tied around their waists. The women leaned on one another's shoulders, stumbling all the way, crying at the tops of their lungs all the way. Their wailing had a rhythm and a tune to it, covering the sky and the earth. A band of horn players was there too, playing funeral music. When they reached the grave and lowered great aunt into the earth, her relatives cried to heaven and earth, their grief tearing at the heart, impossible to bear. My cousins burned paper men and paper horses at the head of the grave. The boy and girl figures were made of white paper, with blood-red lips, tiny and round like cherries. They even had little braids, made from real human hair. The horses were made of red paper, their hooves yellow. Great aunt's eldest daughter stood before a paper ox and wiped its eyes with cotton. The paper ox was almost as big as a real one. She kept murmuring, old ox, listen well. My mother is going to cross the Nahe Bridge. Pour out the clear water. You drink the dirty water for her." The sky grew darker and darker. Not far away, amid the bleak wild grass, there was a fresh grave. I knew that was Tian Geigai's. My cousin aunt once told me that Tian Geigai had never married. According to local custom, she could not use a coffin. Her body was placed in a long wooden box, and she could not be buried underground. She had to be laid flat on the ground and then covered with soil, which made it look very tall. Such a grave for an unmarried girl was not called a grave there. It was called a kuzi. My cousin aunt also said that on the 7th day after Tian Geigai died, her parents took Tian Quan to visit her grave. Tian Geigai's parents burned paper offerings before the chuzi, while Tian Quan knelt before his sister's chuzi and cried. He was too heartbroken, too exhausted. As he cried, he even lay down on the grave and fell asleep. When it was time to leave, his parents woke him. Rubbing his eyes, he said, "I had a dream. I dreamed I went to my sister's house. It was a very strange place, a very strange courtyard. My sister stood outside the gate and wouldn't let me in. She scolded me loudly too, saying, 'What are you doing here? Go away. In a little while your brother-in-law will come back, and then you won't be able to leave.' When they returned from the funeral, my cousins went to report to the shrine, kneeling before the earth god temple in the fields and crying there, meaning to remove great aunt from the household register. Only I was left in great aunt's house. I stood before the mirror, looking at my reflection while thinking over Tian Geigai's story. Through the mirror I saw that tall man appear. I spun around and stared at him through the window. He wandered unhurriedly into the empty courtyard, as though he had no intention of coming inside. He looked around here and there, and at last bent down, scooped up some things, tucked them into his pocket, and slowly walked out again. I went outside and saw that the ground was covered with the ashes left from the paper offerings burned the day before. Nothing special. People here believe this paper ash wards off evil. I went back to the mirror and kept studying myself. The man in the mirror, tall, big-eyed, thin with a slightly dark complexion and a hoarse voice. Wasn't I the invisible man standing opposite Tian Geigai? I said before that I often dreamed of Tian Geigai. In those dreams I was her husband. That hallucinated half-heard married life before she died, I dreamed it in fragments. One day she suddenly disappeared with her family. I searched desperately for her, and when I finally found her, I beat her. While she hid everywhere, she begged for mercy.